Hello everyone and welcome to another video by Synopsis Geek. Today I'll be talking about a couple of films by the name of the Italian horror director by the name of Mario Bava. Forgive me if I pronounce his name wrong. This is a video I've been wanting to make for a couple of weeks now. I was just wanting to watch a couple of his movies before I made the video and kind of better acquaint myself with him. I believe I said on Facebook I would make a couple of, at least one video where I talk about this. So you'll notice I'll talk about a couple of different movies in this one. Not all of his movies, but at least a couple of them, obviously because I haven't seen all of his movies. But I've seen a couple of them now. Like I said, he's an Italian director, and the first one I want to talk about is a new movie by the name of Shock. It came out in 1977, and a fun little fact I just actually read seconds before making this video, it was actually the last theatrical feature before Mario Bava died of a heart attack in 1980. So that's kind of an interesting fact there. Really, it's kind of sad how he passed. That really is sad, you know. I wonder. Probably didn't even get to see his film in the theater. And this was this Shock movie. Kind of a quick little plot synopsis on it. The kid gets possessed by the ex-husband of this her husband supposedly committed suicide. I don't want to spoil too much, but her husband committed suicide, and now the son is possessed by her ex-husband. And now the current husband's having to deal with all this, and the house is kind of haunted by this, and the son's haunted. That's kind of the gist of the movie. But anyways, it's called Shock, and I thought that was kind of interesting. If you look there, also on the cover, the Shock is actually spelled with a C. It's S-C-H-O-C-K. Just kind of a fun little fact there. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. Anyways, let that focus there for a second. So overall, I really enjoyed this movie. This was a really neat one. It had some great sort of eerie moments in it. It kind of had that nice, like I've said before in some of my horror movie reviews, kind of a nice kind of classic haunted house setting. I really like the ending to this movie, and the thing about these movies are, I guess you can call them sort of these Italian horror films, kind of a giallo, and if you're unfamiliar with that term, it kind of just means a mystery fiction. It's a popular term used for Italian horror films. It's mystery fiction, and the word giallo just means yellow, I believe, but it was kind of a thing that was popular between books of the past and movies of the past. So if you're unfamiliar with that, look up the word giallo on Google or Wikipedia, and it'll kind of familiarize yourself with that term or concept if you're not already familiar with it. This, like I said, Shock was a really cool one. I will say, minor spoilers ahead, I really did enjoy the ending where you find out that, like I said, spoilers coming up, she's actually the one that killed her husband. He didn't commit suicide. She murdered him, buried him in the basement behind the brick of the house, and the husband finds this out. So you really find out that maybe she was the one that, she kind of comes off as the victim of the film. You find out that maybe she was the one that was sort of deranged all along. But Shock was a really interesting one that I really liked. And I'll have kind of a fun fact for you guys later on, and maybe I'm just looking too deep into things about the son. The son's actor's name is David Cullen Jr., from what I understand. And he's in another film that's not a Mario Bava film, but maybe that film has some sort of connection with this one. And if you're familiar with these films, you might know exactly what I'm talking about. Maybe I'm just looking too deep into it. I'll get into that here in just a moment. So that movie was called Shock. Let's talk about another one. Now this one is not a Mario Bava film, but I'm going to go ahead and bring it up. It was made in 1974. It's called Beyond the Door. And I believe it is an Italian film. I believe it has another name. I guess it has an extended name or an extended cut in the UK called The Devil Within Her. I believe this one was kind of critically panned. I left a lot of people sort of knocking off The Exorcist and stuff like that. And I can see what they're talking about, but overall, I really thought it was a pretty solid film. And the reason I want to bring it up is because there's two kids in this movie, notably, and there's some really interesting moments with them where they're kind of cussing between each other, and they're cussing out of their parents, and their parents don't even seem to care or realize or even do anything. And I don't know if it's just because of the 70s or if the parents just don't care. Either way, it comes off really funny and hilarious. And the same kid that's in this movie is also in that Shock movie. And if you dive even deeper into it, and you notice that the movies are only made maybe a year or two apart, and I believe Shock has an alternate name of Beyond the Door 2, and correct me if I'm wrong. They are done by two different directors. Mario Bava did Shock. He did not do this movie. This kid, David Cullen, has the same name in both Beyond the Door and the Shock movie. His name, I believe, is Marco, and correct me if I'm wrong again, his name is Marco in both film. So I don't know if he's playing the same kid. I don't know if it's just kind of an homage or a nod to either one of the films, maybe. I'm not really sure which one was filmed first. So I thought maybe you guys can comment below and kind of give me your take on that. Is it just kind of a weird coincidence that he's got the same name in both of these films, or are these films really are connected? Beyond the Door and Shock. Like I said, I really liked Beyond the Door also, but kind of give me your thoughts on what you guys think of that. Like I said, Beyond the Door was kind of like The Exorcist. It had kind of the puke and the kind of the nasty throw up moments and stuff like that. I thought it, but in my opinion, I thought it was able to sort of stand on its own. That is not a Mario Bava movie like the last one. Let's talk about Lisa and the Devil. Now, this one is a Mario Bava film. Came out in 1974. And like I said, and came out in Spain. And this was another solid movie. This is one of those movies that if you're familiar with, and now that I've watched at least 3 of his films now, the third one I'll talk about here in just a second. Now that I've watched 3 of his films, I kind of have more of an understanding of his style. And he has a certain style. A lot of people say his films are kind of under the gothic. They call them, they're kind of the gothic horror. And I can see why they would say something like that. The word kind of gothic originates from that certain sort of gothic architecture of that timeline, and certain gothic architecture you still see today. Lisa and the Devil, out of the couple of films that I've seen, I think Lisa and the Devil is probably a favorite of mine, just because in Minor Explorers Ahead, the character that plays the so-called devil, I guess you could say the bald actor or the older actor, it kind of opens up with this painting, and it's this guy that kind of carries this demon or this devil that carries these people away, and we don't exactly know what he does with them. And then later on, this family and this driver and caretaker and this young girl are lured into the devil's house and this family, and you start to see what's going on here. And I think Lisa and the Devil as a whole, I think, stands on its own really well. The ending, I will say, it's a little, the ending, kind of make your own mess of it. Not that the ending is a mess, but there's a lot of things that happen at the end. Once again, spoilers ahead. There's a lot of things that kind of happen at the end that really make you wonder, what exactly is going on? What's my take on this? And there's some really great moments at the end that kind of, I didn't exactly know how to take. It's one of those ones where you watch it, and then somebody else watches it, and they might have a different take than you do. But like I said, out of the couple that I've watched, I think Lisa and the Devil is definitely a favorite of mine. And let's talk about, where is this at? Let's see here. Excuse me for a moment. Oh yes, The Whip and the Body. This is one that even if you're not a Mario Bava fan, if you are a Christopher Lee fan, Lord of the Rings, and he just passed just a couple of years back, if I'm not mistaken, maybe even longer than that. It does feel just like a couple of years ago. The Whip and the Body, another Italian film. This is a 1963 gothic horror feature. Looks like he was under an alias at this time, John M. Old. That's kind of interesting. But The Whip and the Body is, I will say, out of the 3 films between Shock, Whip and the Body, and Lisa and the Devil, Whip and the Body is definitely kind of the strangest of them all. And I would say, as far as acting goes, Christopher Lee does really stand out. And even the girl that plays Nevenka, the victim, really does stand out too. And there will be spoilers ahead of this one. But this one kind of opens up. Now, this one's kind of and I didn't even know this. I've watched all these 3 films on Shudder, and Shudder's put out a bunch of these recently. They put Black Sunday on there, which is another Mario Bava film I have not watched, but I might make a video about that one in the future. Excuse me. But so The Whip and the Body opens up. It's kind of an erotic horror film. I didn't know that going into it, but you're sitting there watching it, and then he just starts whipping, starts whipping the girl, starts whipping Nevenka on the back, and her shirt falls off, and she's on like this beach sort of wayside or cliff water area, and then it kind of opens up to sort of be this mystery fiction of, like I said, spoilers coming up. Somebody's killed Christopher Lee's character, and now you're find out who exactly it is. And I have to say, the mystery is crafted gorgeously and beautifully in this film, as I never quite knew who to suspect. I was like, well, maybe it's the father character. Well, maybe it's the other young girl, or maybe it's the sort of the caretaker of the house. The guy, I forget his name. I believe his name started with an H or something, but he always seemed to be there, and he had the muddy footprints. I was like, well, maybe it's him, and I never quite knew, and I never expected it to, it's Major Explorer coming up. Never expected it to be Nevenka. Maybe you guys did when you watched it, but I definitely didn't expect her to be the one, and it just shows that how far that yes, she was sort of, even though it's weird to think about, yes, she was attracted to him. Yes, she was sort of aroused or turned on by the whipping and the sort of the eroticness of it. Overall, she was very traumatized by the events, and the killing and all, just the whipping of her back and stuff like that. But overall, the whip in the body. This is sort of it seems to be one of his most besides Black Sunday, according to what a lot of the research and the reading of the internet that I've been doing, seems to be more of a famous and one of his big notorious films that a lot of people like. But like I said, I still think Lisa and the Devil is probably my favorite out of the three I've watched. Shock's kind of more of just a fun, sort of eerie horror film. Lisa and the Devil is my favorite. And Whipping the Body would have to be the one, I guess maybe is the most graphic and definitely the strangest and obviously the most erotic of the films I watched. It was definitely an odd feature, but overall a very enjoyable feature. Anyways, I just wanted to make a video about all these Mario Bava films I've watched, and like I said earlier, let me know about what you think about that shock and that beyond the door kind of thing. Do you think that was intentional? Do you think that was just a coincidence, a nod, or an homage? It's really interesting to kind of get your guys' opinions on that, and maybe it's just me thinking about these things. Other people are watching, Christmas movies and stuff during the holiday season, and not that I haven't watched Christmas films. Me and my wife just watched Deck the Halls, Danny DeVito the other night on the Freeform channel, but I like to always watch some weird, kind of obscure horror films, and that's how I bring in my holiday season, at least. Anyways, thanks for watching the video by Centipede Geek. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe below.